Hi everybody, I'm back. It is a rainy day in June, and we are about to start our third project together. Here is my drawing. There will be a picture of it, but this is my drawing that I've made. I've actually broken this down. This is our pocket wrap that we're gonna do. If you want to follow a pattern, there is a pattern for this, and I'm going to link it in the description. I personally like to just do my own thing. So I kind of wing it. I tend to just kind of wing things as I go, which sometimes can be frustrating if you're not following a pattern, but I find for me, it ends up working out better than if I follow somebody else's pattern, because then I don't have to deal with gauges and all that stuff. You know, when you make something, you follow a pattern, you make it, and it ends up being 5 times bigger than what it was meant to be, because I crochet more loosely than most people. So if I do it my own way, it tends to work out better for me, but you can do it your way. And I am all about supporting small businesses. And this particular pattern, I think it's $6 to buy it. So I will put a link to it. I did get some clues off of the description, which gave me some ideas of where to go. And then some brilliant person on the internet drew out a sort of a picture of what they wanted to do with some measurements on it. And that gave me some clues. So I drew out my own picture, took my own measurements, and my measurements are in inches, hers are in centimeters, but they're not far off. They're pretty close. I do recommend that you measure your own body, because obviously we're all shaped differently. We all want things to hang differently. The first stage we're gonna do is the body, the main part. This seems pretty simple to me, although I'm gonna tell you, anytime I wing anything, there's always gonna be stuff that happens where I'm like, that didn't work out. If you remember correctly on the, or if you may not have even watched it, but on our quarantine blanket, I originally planned on doing 12 squares of each stitch, and that would have been a humongous blanket that would probably have covered a king size bed. And that was a lot of yarn to expect out of people who at the time didn't even have access to like yarn stores, because there were so many things closed. But even still, that was a lot to ask for your first project. So we, cut it back to half of the size, and you may see me make some changes on this as well. However, it seems to be very simple. It's just a rectangle with some edging on the sides, 2 pockets, which is also 2 rectangles, and then some fringe. Seems easy. I think we can handle it, but who knows what will happen. The body part is what we're gonna start off with, because that's the biggest part, and then we'll add the other pieces to it. I am choosing to do, so far, I may change it, I am choosing to do the same stitch that we used in our second square of our blanket, because I fell so in love with it, because it was just a really cool texture, but it is not an open weave. It is gonna be nice and solid. I think TJ and a couple other people were talking about doing an open weave. As you know, I love every time we do a project for it to be different for each person. I would love for all of us to have a little bit of personality in our projects. So mine's gonna be more solid. If you wanna do a more open weave, that's great. I'm going to teach, in this video, I'm going to teach how to do a foundation half double crochet, which means that you're not gonna make a chain. You're just gonna go right into doing your half double crochet. And the reason I'm gonna do that is because if you've ever made anything long before, and I know some of you are brand new beginners, so you probably haven't, but if you've ever made anything long before, like a scarf or a blanket, if you do a chain to start off, that chain doesn't stretch. It's pretty much like a solid string. But by the time you get to the other side of that really long piece that you're doing, it's gonna be super stretchy. So you've got one end, and I have my favorite blanket on my bed is like this. You've got one end that doesn't stretch much, and the other end that stretches a lot, which is like, it's annoying. It's not the perfect square or the perfect rectangle you want it to be. So we're gonna do a foundation half double crochet, or you can do a foundation. You can do this with any stitch, but you can do a foundation for any stitch you want, and it'll be nice and stretchy, just like the top. So the bottom and the top will be the same amount of stretch to it. So you won't have that issue where one side looks like that. So that's the first thing I'm gonna teach. And then we're gonna do the half double crochet, which you already know, but I'm gonna teach it again. And basically we're just gonna make one big rectangle. But I might actually do a rib stitch on the edges. I haven't decided if that's gonna look good or not. Then we'll do the pockets and then we'll do the fringe. I can tell you that the yarn I chose was not the kind of yarn that they had. I kind of was looking at this description to see what they had on theirs, and they actually had what's called an Aran weight yarn, which is, it's still a 4, but it's a really skinny 4. So it's a lot less bulk to the yarn, and it's really pretty, but they said that it was gonna take 1,000 yards of yarn, and I was like, what the heck? That's a lot of yarn. So I bought not 1,000 yards, but pretty close. These are 185 yards each, and I bought 4 of them. This is Lion Brand Homespun yarn. This is really thick, so it's gonna take up a lot of space, and I'm using a nice big hook to keep it nice and soft, so it doesn't get super tight. It's still kind of soft and flowy, and it's gonna travel quickly. So I don't think, I could be wrong, I could always be wrong, but I don't think I'm gonna use more than 2 of these. But if I have extras, because it is such a cool color, my son picked out this color. It looks like, it's called Flame, I think, or Fire. It's called Fire. But it's such a neat, like, changing orange and red and whatever. It looks like fall to me, which I love, because, you know, most of you who know me know that fall is hands down my favorite season. So if I have leftover, which I hope I will, I plan on making a hat out of it, and maybe a cool head wrap. This is in the Celtic weave, which I love. And then maybe some pumpkins. So I have plans for my leftover yarn, but for right now, we'll see. So we're gonna start off by doing the foundation half double crochet stitch, and then we'll go into the back loop, front loop, half double crochet, and I think that's it. And then what I'll do is I'll probably show you progression as I go. So this is the longest, biggest part of your wrap, your pocket wrap. And once this part is done, the rest of it's like just details. Let's see how it goes. Should be fun. Okay guys, so here is just a closer look at what I drew up for our little sketch. The first thing I did was I measured basically from fingertip to fingertip, which for me was about 60, it's actually like 61 inches, but we added an extra inch on there. I'm gonna stitch long ways, and it's gonna go up this way, just so that the pattern is, I don't know, I just think that seems like it would work best for me. You could go this way. I just think putting the fringe on, I think it'll be easier to put the edges on if you go a long ways, but you can totally decide depending on what stitch you decide to use, which way you want to go. So for me, I'm going to go long ways, but if I'm going to do the long part of it, then that means I don't want to do a chain stitch, because if I start with a chain stitch, it's going to limit the mobility of the stitch. So one side will be tighter, the other side will be nice and loose because those are the actual stitches, but the chain stitch kind of keeps it tight. And you don't want that. You want this to both be equally stretchy on both sides. So what I had to learn for my first time was how to do basically a foundation half double crochet. Basically, you're doing your chain stitch at the same time as doing your first round of half double crochet. So you want to do your slip stitch just like normal, right? And I'm actually going to move this out of the way so you're right on top of the white. I am using a bulky, like I said earlier, I'm using a bulky yarn, which is a 5, and it wanted me to use a K hook. I'm using a L because I just wanted to go up 1. That's a pretty big difference because a K is like a 6.5 and L is like a 8 millimeter. So that's a pretty solid difference there. So I made my slip stitch, or we're going to do 2 chains. Hopefully I remember how to do this because I've only watched the video once. So, and I will link the video that I learned off of in the description so you can follow along in there too. So you got 2 chains. Now you're going to act like you're going to do a half double crochet. So I don't know if you remember, but a half double crochet, you wrap once, you go into the chain. This is not what we're going to do, but I'm just reminding you what a half double crochet is. You come up and then you usually would wrap and then go through all 3, right? In this case, that we're going to do the chain at the same time as we're doing the half double crochet. So you're basically going, instead of going side to side, you're going up and down. So it's going to come this way as you're doing it. So you want to wrap once and pull that through. That's the chain. And then wrap again and pull through all 3. That's the half double crochet, right? And you can even kind of hold it where you did your chain so you don't get lost. and you do it again, wrap it once, go through the chain that you just made. So you're going under both of those, pull through, you got 3 on the hook. You're gonna wrap it, go through 1, that's the chain, right? So there's the chain on the bottom, and then wrap it again and go through all 3. And that's the half double crochet until you get to 62 inches. So, and it should be more accurate actually than if you did a chain, because you know how sometimes you have to stretch the chain out. This one should actually end up to look more accurate because it's like you've done the chain plus the first row all at once. So wrap it, go under those 2 that was the last chain, pull it through, wrap it, pull through 1 for the chain, right? Chain, 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 and then wrap it again and go through all 3. And that's the half double crochet. So hopefully you can see that. If I turned it this way, you would be going chain, 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 half double crochets on top. That's what it looks like. So I'm going to continue to do this until we get to 62 inches. And then I will come back to you when we're ready. Ta-da! That is 62 inches. Yay, give or take. It's pretty close. Okay, we're gonna chain up 1 right there, and then we're gonna turn. Okay, so now we go back the way we came, but now it's almost like we're on the second row. So this first row was just a plain HDC, right? Half double crochet. This row is going to be when we do the front back, but remember that the first one, based on what we did before on our squares, the first one is regular half double crochet in both of those loops. So just like that. And then you're just going to pull through all 3. Okay, next one. So that's the first. And remember what that does is that's going to give us kind of a border. So we have plain HDCs here, and we're going to have plain ones on this side and plain ones on the other end, and then we're going to do one on top too. But in between is where the pattern's going to be. So now we're going to do our HDC in the front loop and the back loop, and this is going to be interesting, trying to find those. So here's the front loop, here's the back loop. It just kind of feels different than if you had done it as a regular, do the chain and then do the next one. So here's the front loop. So back loop and then front loop and then back loop and then front loop all the way across until you get to the last one. And then you're going to go through both of them. Okay, guys, wow, that went a lot faster than I thought it would. So I did this whole thing, only took a few minutes. So if you're using a bulky yarn, it probably isn't going to take very long to do this. So we're down to the last one. And so I am going to just go in there under those 2, and that we're going to go under both of them instead of the back front, and then just pull through. So now you got a nice square edge there. And then we're going to go up 1, and then we're going to turn it, and same thing going back. First one goes through both. Okay, now we're going to go through the back and front. So back first. If I don't make a mess of it, hold on. Back first, and then front. And let's just see if the pattern looks as nice as it looks on my square, because I literally have the blanket right behind me. So the cool thing about this pattern that I liked so much, yeah, it does. So that line continues up this way. That's cool. And then the line on the other side continues. So the thing I liked about this pattern so much was, or the stitch so much, was that on my square for my blanket, you literally can't even tell where it starts and where it ends if I did it this way, this way, or this way. It's that's what I like about it, is it doesn't look like your traditional crochet stitch. So I love it. So I finished, that was the back. This is the front. So the next one's going to be front. And I'm just going to continue doing that until it's as high as I measured out, which was 20 inches. Look what I did. it's all done, just the main piece. I think I've decided a few things and I'm going to share them with you. This is kind of what it's going to look like, which is perfect. The pockets will go right here. The fringe will go down here. It hangs about there in the back. And I decided that I am only going to do 20 inches. So, and the reason why is because this feels like a blanket. It's pretty thick. And the edges, I tried multiple kinds of edges. I was gonna do like a ribbed edge. I was gonna do a half double crochet. And it just seemed like it was getting too busy and kind of taking away from the prettiness of the texture. So I just decided that I'm just gonna leave it. It started off with a half double crochet normal, not without going back loop, front loop. And then it ended that way. I finished it that way. And so it kind of already has a solid line on either side anyway that kind of frames it in. So I started working on the pockets and I realized that I did not want to have the same texture on the pockets as I have on the shawl because it's just too busy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo these and I'm going to do them just in regular half double crochet, just solid squares. The other thing I noticed too is that I originally on here, I had the pockets at 12 inches. Do you know how wide a 12-inch square is? It's like huge. I mean, it's the squares that we made for our blankets. Can you imagine that as a pocket? That's humongous. So I decided to take it down to 10 inches. So those are two things I changed on my sketch. I got rid of this, and I made this 10 inches wide. And in order to keep it rectangular, I think I'm gonna make it 8 inches high. It kind of depends once I put it on the shawl how it's gonna look. If I find that it's not tall enough or whatever, I think 8 inches will be plenty, but if I find it's not tall enough, I might go to 9 inches, but I still want that sort of rectangular shape instead of a square shape, so I think I'm gonna go 10 by 8 on these, and this is just 20 inches instead of 22. I got down to the last skein on this, and I still have 2 pockets and the fringe to do. I think I have enough, but just in case, I went and got a 5th one. So that's my 4th skein, this is my 5th one, and that would have brought me to about 1,000, a little over 1,000 yards. I was in denial that it would take 1,000 yards to do this, but I was wrong. I think it will take right around that amount. So I went and got the 5th skein just in case, because I figured if I don't end up using it for this, you know I have other projects I want to use it on. So such a beautiful yarn. While I was there, so I got this for like 40% off because I had a coupon, and then they had these for $2.50 a piece on clearance. So aren't they pretty? I don't know if you can see, but it's purple and green and like a light green and blue. It's so pretty. And this is a thinner yarn. So I think I'm gonna make a second one of these in these colors. I got 4 of them, $2.50 a piece, so 10 bucks. Anyway, so I think that'll be the next one. And I probably am not gonna do a video about that because it's basically gonna be the same thing, except that it'll just be a different stitch. I'm gonna use like a more open weave and make it more of a kind of a drapey shawl. But I will post pictures on our Facebook group so you can see them when it's done. My next goal here is to do the pockets. And what I decided on the pockets is, like I said, it's gonna be solid. It's not gonna be the same texture as the shawl. But I think I'm gonna maybe add some extra doodads, and because I think it'll be kind of cool if it had some doodads, and then I can kind of add some into the fringe too, to just kind of, you know, so it's not just a plain square there. We'll see. I may prefer a plain square. Don't get too excited. Anyway, that's the plan. I'm excited. It's almost done. And then I'll just do another one. And then if it ends up being my favorite thing, I'll probably do a ton of them. So anyway, on to the next step. Okay, so I have already done the foundation row for my pocket. So I just took it back to the foundation row, and then I took it back 2 stitches just so that I can kind of remind you how to do this foundation chaining, so that you're chaining and doing your first row at the same time. So you basically wrap it, you go into that chain right there, pull it through, chain 1, and then pull through all 3. And then I did that I took it apart 2 stitches. So this should be, after I do this, it should be about 10 inches. And then all 3, like so. yep, this actually goes up. So there you go, right around 10 inches for the pocket. I'm gonna make mine very simple, except I think I'm going to add a little bit of this just to kind of give it a little texture up top. So once we get to about, I think I'm going to do 10 by 8. So once we get to about the, maybe the 6-inch level, I'm going to start weaving this in towards the top, maybe 7-inch. And because as you can see, one row is an inch. So it's going to go pretty fast. And we'll see if we like it. If not, I can always take it apart and redo it, right? So it's always good to experiment. And then what I'll do is I'll add this in with the fringe, and it'll give it just kind of a different texture. And remember, we're not doing front loop, back loop. This is just normal. Wrap it once, put it through, yarn over, pull it through again, and then pull it through all 3. So wrap once, go through, yarn over, pull through, and then pull through all 3. And I'm going to do that all the way across. Okay, we've made it to 6 inches, and here's what I think I'm going to do. I'm just going to add this in and see what it does. See if I like it. So we're right here at the final part where you pull through, wrap and pull through to end that row. When I wrap and pull through, I'm going to do it and add that extra piece in there. And we will wrap and pull through all of that up to the top. And now I'm working with 2 pieces of yarn. So chain up 1, turn it, and then go back and keep doing the half double crochet across the top. So what this is going to do is it's going to thicken it up and give it some kind of funky texture. I may not like it, so we'll see what happens. But it's always good to experiment and see. There's this Stash Buster blanket that I do for people. I've done, gosh, how many have I done now? I did one for my mom, I did one for my brother, and one for my son, where you're working with 3 strands of yarn, and then and they're all different colors, and then whenever one, you just work on it till it runs out. It's supposed to be to get rid of all your extra pieces. So when one runs out, you just replace it with a totally different color and then keep the same 2 that you had before. And it ends up being this kind of cool ombre effect. And it's one of my favorite blankets to make because it's literally just this, just like going back and forth and adding pieces in. And you can make a huge blanket with just like scraps and extra yarn that you have in your closet. So it's really fun. What do you think? That's the less crazy side. That's the crazier side. Oh, I actually think I really like that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop that piece for just a minute. I'm going to do 1 row without it, maybe 2. So up 1, we're going to leave that go. And we're going to go back to just the regular, just 1 piece of yarn. Okay, so I think this definitely has a more subdued side and a fuzzier side. And if I want it to be fuzzy again up here, I think I want to go ahead and instead of, I was going to just pick it up over here when I came back, but I think I'm going to cut it and start again so that all the fuzzes, most of the fuzzes, are on one side. And then we're just going to weave these ends in. But I'm going to go ahead, now that I've done 1 plain row, I'm going to go ahead and pick this back up again in here. Chain 1, turn it, and head back. And this should get us, I think I'm going to do 2 rows of this, and that should put us at 8. What do you think? Is that deep enough? We'll find out. I think I actually really like that, but I think I'm going to put normal stitches on top, maybe like 2. And that would probably put us at about, probably like 8.5 inches. let's see. I may like it better that way anyway, because this seems very rectangular and I might want it to be like here. So let's keep going. This time we're gonna drop the brown, leave that there. Up one. And then I believe I'm gonna do the rest in just the regular orange yarn. Okay guys, so just a quick update. I just wanted to show you that my pocket, once I got all of the ends woven in and everything, I kind of just sort of played with the shape of it, because you can actually block your pockets to be whatever shape you want them to be just by getting them wet and then pinning them down to something and like letting it dry overnight, and it'll stay that shape. Sometimes I'll just like spray it with a spray bottle and then just like pin it into cardboard and let it sit there. So this actually ended up being almost square, because a little over 10 inches, and because I stretched it this way to get it back to this, it's about 10 inches on that side. So it kind of ended up to be right about a 10-inch square anyway. So I think it's gonna be good. I think it'll be a good place for, I think it'll look good. Okay, you guys, so here we go. We got 2 squares done. They're pretty much identical. A couple of things that little tips I can give you to make them identical. Number one is the first one I did it by measurement. You saw I followed the ruler, tried to make it actually end up to be more square than rectangular, but that's okay because I kind of like it that way. The second one though, I actually counted the stitches because, you know, things can always be different depending on like your tension and everything. So in order for me to make it right the first time, I went ahead and counted my stitches. So for me, there ended up being 21 stitches this way. So I did exactly 21 this way. And then I counted how many levels up. And then I did the exact same on both sides. The other thing that I did too is, I don't know if you can tell by looking at this video, but my yarn is a little bit variegated. So it starts off with kind of a bright orange, and then it goes to kind of a dark red, and then kind of a brown, and then bright orange, and then dark red, and then brown. So when I started this one, it was on the bright orange, but when I went to start this one, it was on the brown, because we already did we were already at the red right here, like the bright orange is right there, and then the red. So I actually had to take out some of the yarn so that I'm starting in the same spot so that the colors matched. Otherwise, this would have been brown down here, and then it wouldn't have matched perfectly. So I had to take all of that out to make that happen, but that's okay because I'm actually going to use this when we do our tassels. I might actually use this to sew this on too, and then I might actually use it for tassels. And this is all I have left. So that was out of my original 4. And this is what I have left after doing just the main piece and the 2 pockets. So it might be enough to do tassels. We'll see. This and this should be enough to do tassels depending on how thick you want it. And I'm also going to add in this into my tassels too, so that it matches this. So that'll be the next thing I'm going to do is teach you how to sew the pockets on. And then we will do the tassels, and then we'll be done. It's gonna go pretty fast. So, next step. Okay, you guys, so the next step is to pin your pocket down. And you do not wanna skip this step because that pocket will, as you're trying to sew it down, will move all over the place. And that'll be really frustrating if you get to the end and it doesn't match the other side or it's crooked or whatever. So you definitely wanna do that. So yeah, of course before you sew it all on, you want to try it on and make sure it fits right with your hands and the length of your body and stuff too. So you may want to move your pockets up or down. Look at how huge these pockets are. So comfy. This is going to be my favorite thing to snuggle in come fall, I think. Or maybe even in summer when the air conditioning is like cranked, this might be also a nice little snuggle blanket for watching TV. I have found with this yarn that kind of frays, the easiest way to thread your needle is to like bend it and stick it through that way so that you don't have to deal with all that frayed edging, because it doesn't matter how many times you trim it, it's still gonna fray. Okay, so I'm gonna cut myself a nice big long piece. I try to do like twice as much as I need to get around it. So obviously we're not gonna do this part. This is the top of the pocket. So we're gonna start here on the corner And we're just gonna kind of do exactly like what we did before when we were doing the appliques for the quarantine blanket. We're gonna kind of just sneak that in. And I'm actually, since I have to make a knot to get started, leave a tail so that you can hide your, you can weave your end in. And try to, when you're doing this, you want to try to hit the tops of the yarn that you're not going to see, this part that'll be underneath here, and it won't show through on the back. Even though the back is not like as much of a big deal on this because it obviously has a front to it, but I still like it when the yarn doesn't really show that much. You're not going to see it anyway because it's the same yarn, but still just to keep it as hidden as possible is good. And this is, give yourself time. This is going to take a while because you definitely want, it's not like the appliques where you can kind of just sew it on there. You want a strong seam right there because you're going to be sticking your hands in it all the time, and you definitely want to be ripping that seam out all the time. In fact, my yarn, that my tail keeps getting shorter, which means my knot's not very good. So I'm going to actually, when I'm done with all this, I'm going to tie that knot better before I sew in that end. Okay, so that's pretty much what we're gonna do. I'm just gonna go all the way around here, and then I will see you when I'm done. So I've got one side done. I went through and redid this knot right here just to make sure that it's nice and secure, and I already wove in the ends there. So I wanted to make sure that this was a secure side, and it looks like it's gonna do pretty good. Okay guys, so fringe is actually really easy. The only part that's time consuming about it is cutting all the lengths. And I've been told by my daughter that she thinks that 3 inches of fringe would be good, but that doesn't mean that you want to do 6 inches of length, because you actually need part for the knot too. So you want to actually do like, I'm going to do like a practice, and you want to do a little bit long because when we get done, we're actually going to trim it so it all matches and looks good. That's about 4 inches. So in order to do 4 inches, it's going to take about, let's call it, mark it there. It's actually going to take about 11 inches of, it's going to take about 11 inches of yarn to do about a 4-inch tail, and then we'll cut that 4-inch fringe down to about 3 inches. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mix in some of the body yarn, but I'm going to put in like one little strand of the yarn that we used as our detail yarn too, just so that it kind of all draws it together. And we'll see how it goes. So I think I'll probably do like probably 3 strands of the regular yarn and then 1 strand of this, and then we'll make a tassel of that, and we'll see if we like it. So let's start off with cutting 11 inches of each, and it's easier to just like hold them together and cut. And remember, they don't have to be perfect because we are going to trim them. And this one has actually 2 strands in it because it's got like this puffy strand and this like eyelash looking strand too. So I'm going to make sure those are at least even with each other. Okay, see how time consuming that is? That's 1 tassel. So let's put this 1 tassel on and see how it looks. I'm just going to fold it in half, grab a spot. You actually want to put some thought into where you want to put your tassels. Like, do you want to put them down here on this low part? I think I kind of want them up here where it's thicker, so that they don't get like, so they don't pull on this little yarn right here. I think I'm gonna come up here and do it up there. So let's start right here in the middle. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull this through, grab the whole thing, pull it all through. It's a nice big hole, so it works. And then make the hole big enough so that you can pull all of that through, right? And then you just tighten it up and you got yourself a cute little tassel. That looks like pretty good thickness. When you go all the way across, it'll be nice and thick. Okay guys, here's my progress so far on my tassels. It's actually going pretty quick, just because it's such a big stitch. There's actually, I've been putting them, there's a natural little bar that happens right here just because of the stitch that we chose. And in between these two bars is this little piece right here to grab onto. So that's where I've been putting the tassels. And originally I thought maybe I would put one in here inside the bar too. But so far I kind of like them spaced out like that. So I think it's gonna actually go pretty quickly. So anyway, that's how I am so far on this. It's looking pretty good. Okay guys, I've got all the trim done on both sides. And I think what I decided, instead of trying to like go through and measure it and make sure that everything is like exactly 3 inches, I kind of like the bohemian sort of look of it not being totally perfect. But there are a couple of guys out here that have just a little bit longer than others. So I think what I'm gonna do is just kind of trim sort of like your hairdresser would, so that it's not like a perfect line, but just kind of a shredded line next to the other ones. So that it's all about the same, but it's not like, I don't know. I just don't think a perfect line is the look that I'm going for on this. It wants to be kind of a bohemian sort of ratty ends to it, because I love the unevenness of it, but not so uneven that it's like, oh, you got something hanging like 3 inches down. So I'm just gonna kind of trim these up a little bit on both sides. And then there's one little thing that I think I've decided I'm gonna add. Just after looking at the overall layout of it, I'll show you here. Hold on just a second. So there it is. I'm so excited with how this is turning out. It looks so cool. But I think it needs one little extra detail. So I'm gonna go ahead and do it, and then I'll show you when it's done. There it is, all finished. Can you see what I did? I added edging onto the sides. Here, I'll get closer. So I took that brown fuzzy stuff and I did a little top stitch or a surface crochet along the edges to just kind of give it a finished look, which I think looks a lot better than just leaving it plain. Ta-da! We did it, it's all done. Yay! This is so cozy. Definitely not something to wear on an 80-degree day like today, but very, very snuggly and cozy. And it's gonna go so great with all of my Halloween decor, my fall. It screams October, November to me, which are my 2 favorite months. So I'm pretty excited about that. Here, I'll show you what it looks like spread out from the back. So my version of the pocket shawl that was online that we found, but I'm gonna make a second one and I'm gonna do it lighter because this one's really thick like a blanket, and I think I'd like to do one that's a little bit like a shawl. And I think that I'm gonna make it a little bit shorter, maybe, we'll see. I think a little shorter so that it kind of hangs more like something you would wear with jeans and a t-shirt or something. So I'm gonna give that a shot. We'll see what happens first. I don't know if I'll get this video edited first or if I'll get the shawl done first. So if I get the shawl done first, maybe it'll be right at the end of this video. But anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching.